All right. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Kent City Council meeting for March 16th, 2021. Just a reminder, this is a remote meeting due to the governor's order regarding COVID-19. A live broadcast of this meeting is available on Kent TV 21, the City of Kent's Facebook page, as well as our YouTube channel, which is Kent TV 21. There's also a dial-in option for this meeting. We've now called the meeting to order. Prior to calling roll, just want to remind the listening audience and all of us on this call of the vision and mission for the City of Kent. Our vision is where people choose to live and businesses change the world. And our mission is the City of Kent is committed to building a safe, thriving, sustainable, and inclusive community. And those two things ground all the work that occurs in the city and with our City Council. So with that, I will turn it over to Kim to call the roll.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Mayor Ralph.
Here.
Council President Troutner.
Here.
Councilmember Boyce.
Here.
Councilmember Fincher.
Here.
Councilmember Kaur.
Here.
Councilmember Larimer.
Here.
Councilmember Michaud.
Here.
Councilmember Thomas.
Here.
Thank you.
Right. Thank you, Kim. Moving on to item number 3, approval of the agenda. Are there any changes to the agenda from staff or council?
None from staff this evening.
Madam Mayor, I'd like to make a change to the agenda, please.
All right. We will go ahead, Councilmember Boyce, and handle that in 2 parts. We'll start with an approval, motion to approve the agenda in a second. Then we'll have you chime in with an amendment. We'll vote on that amendment and then vote on the full agenda. So with that, is there a motion to approve the agenda?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move to approve the agenda.
Second.
All right, we've got a motion and a second. Now, Councilmember Boyce, would be your opportunity to offer an amendment.
Yes, Madam Mayor, I'd like to offer an amendment to move item 9A from our meeting tonight. And do I need a second? Do I just discuss it or what?
So we need a second to clarify for our listening audience. 9A is the Bridges Oak Point Ordinance amending the comprehensive plan land use map. Is there a second to Councilmember Boyce's motion to remove this item from the agenda?
Second.
All right, there's a motion and a second. Councilmember Boyce, would you like to speak to your motion?
Yes, Madam Mayor, this is, I understand we have a lot of people on the call tonight, but I think as councilman, we want to make sure this is a big decision. There's still some questions that keep coming up just recently today that I still have questions around just the wetland and the vesting. And I just need a little more time. I did talk to Matt and the team today. Still need a little more clarity around this issue here. And I'm more than happy we could talk about this sometime in the future, but I just need a little more time to really get my arms around this here.
All right, so there's a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Councilmember Thomas.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I hate to oppose my brother, but I will be voting no on this. I think we've had a long enough time to explore all the questions that we might have. I talked extensively to Derek today too about Auburn and their wetlands. I'm perfectly happy to address the issue tonight, yay or nay. So in that respect, I am ready, so I will be voting no. Sorry.
Okay, Councilmember Kaur, followed by Larimer and then Fincher.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I appreciate Councilmember Boyce's comment here, but 2 weeks ago we had this opportunity, and some of us Councilmember actually, Thomas was the one who made the motion to bring this back when all of the council members were ready. And I believe Councilmember Boyce was one of the people who said that we should bring it back in 2 weeks. So we have it on our agenda today. I am ready to vote on it tonight. So that's where I stand. Thank you.
Okay, Councilmember Larimer.
Yes, thank you. So I will also be, unfortunately, voting no to this motion. I too am ready to vote tonight, and I feel like we have a lot of parties that have waited long enough. So I will respectfully be voting against the motion to remove this.
Okay, and Councilmember Fincher.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I will be voting yes. In fact, even today, I've been talking to people in Auburn, talking to our legal staff, talking to a number of people, and I'm one of those who has questions. I want to make sure on some of the legalities before I vote either way on this, and so I will be voting yes in support of Councilmember Boyce's motion.
Thank you. So at this point, we have a motion and a second to amend the agenda, removing item number 9A.
Can you do a roll call, Your Honor, Madam Mayor? Roll call.
Absolutely. Kim, can we call the roll on the amendment, please?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councilmember Boyce,
Yes.
Councilmember Fincher,
Yes.
Councilmember Kaur,
No.
Councilmember Larimer,
Sorry, no.
Councilmember Michaud,
Yes.
Councilmember Thomas,
No.
Councilmember Troutner.
Yes.
Okay.
All right. So motion carries 4-3 to remove item 9A from the agenda. With that, there would be a vote. We have a motion on the floor to approve the agenda as amended. All those in favor of approving the agenda as amended?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Sounds like motion carries 7-0. Is that correct? Looking for nodding heads. I didn't hear any in opposition. All right. So the item or the agenda has been amended, removing item 9A at this point indefinitely. I do want to let everyone know, Councilmember Fincher, did you have a question or a comment?
Just saying that this will come back to the council. We're going to gather information, but it's not like we're kicking it out never to answer.
Thank you. So I want to let everyone know that's on the call this evening that the council has removed this item from the agenda. There is not a date set for this to come back. I know that there is conversation both by council members as well as the developer with some of the late breaking information looking for time on project feasibility and whether or not they will be requesting that this moves forward at a later date or not in not amending the comp plan this year. So want to let everyone know that signed up on the call. You're more than welcome to provide public comment this evening. If you choose to leave the call, we do have a list and contact information for everyone that is signed up. And should this item come back before the council, we will provide you with ample notice and opportunity to come back and provide public comment to the council before a decision is made on this item. All right. We will move on under public communications to public recognition. Do any of the council members have any public recognition this evening? All right, seeing none, we will move on to community events. Council President Troutner.
Madam Mayor, I just have an upcoming event to share. This Sunday, we have another mask giveaway. It will be at Shower from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. and it's a spring theme. So be sure to come by. We'll have some masks to give away and some hand sanitizer.
All right, thank you. And also a reminder that at that event, we are doing a diaper drive for March of Diapers. It's an event that has been occurring in South County for quite some time. As you may all know, diapers are extremely expensive, and especially during the pandemic, families have been hit really hard when it comes to diapers and wipes. So we are strongly encouraging everyone to come down and bring some diapers and wipes to the event, and we'll be donating those to local organizations that are helping out our families in need. Councilmember Fincher. Oh, you're on mute.
Thank you. The Kent Equity and Inclusion Series is going to have a presentation 7 p.m. for the public next week. And I believe that is on the 24th. I am looking through my calendar. So do either of you have or any of you have the exact date?
It is Wednesday, the 24th.
Okay. So that's 7 p.m. and information. You can contact us, look at the website for information, and that will be via Zoom. And the speaker this time is a Native American. So we will learn more about our Native American culture.
All right. Thank you, Councilmember Fincher. Any additional community events? All right. I will wrap up this section with Councilmember Thomas.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. There is a community in schools event on this Thursday, the 18th, from 8 to 9 a.m. And you have to register first, though, www.kent.ciswa.org. So if you can attend, please register and come.
Absolutely. It's our annual fundraising breakfast. So looking forward to that for sure. Councilmember Fincher, did you have something else you wanted to add? Oh, you're still on mute.
We have our last concert coming up. So the Spotlight series, be sure to check that out. It's also on the website.
All right. I will close this section of our agenda with an invitation. The State of the City address, an annual address that I give on what's happening in our city and look back at the year behind us, will be virtual this year because of COVID. It is on Monday, the 22nd at 7 p.m. You can tune in to TV 21 or our Facebook channel for that event. And I would love to have everyone come out and kind of help us look back at what the last year has been, and also look forward to a better and brighter year. All right. Item letter C under public communications is our public safety report, and I will turn it over to Chief Padilla.
Are you guys hearing me okay?
Yes.
Good. All right. Wasn't sure there for a second. All right. Well, good evening. Thanks for allowing me the time to present tonight's report. If we go to the first slide there, please, Kim. I want to start with some appreciation of a couple of our community members, Mr. David Henderson and Josh Whipple, who work at the Home Depot. They stepped up recently and helped us with a serious matter in which a male had died. And we thought initially we had a homicide investigation, and their efforts helped us figure out what actually happened and get closure for the family on this. So on February 22nd, our officers were sent to what was started out as a medical emergency. And what they were responding to was an unconscious male who was non-responsive. And unfortunately, he did not survive despite life-saving efforts by the officers and firefighters. While that was going on, the detectives were trying to figure out what they had. The initial information indicated that it might have been a homicide. And so major serious crime, obviously. And so they started to get to work. Through investigation, they learned that the male involved with a conflict with the deceased just prior had been at the Home Depot on the East Hill making a purchase. Officers contacted Home Depot, again, talking to Mr. Henderson and Mr. Whipple, who assisted them greatly by reviewing a lot of video in a short time that eventually helped us identify the suspect and a vehicle description, which led to locating them at their residence. So that happened rather quickly. As you know, we take all of these violent crimes very seriously. A lot of times it can take months to solve a situation like this, but because of their willingness to help and assist the officers, we actually got to a conclusion on this in a matter of days. And it did not turn out, I do want to note, not turn out be a case where we charged for homicide, but we were able to make an arrest for a lower level crime and give the family some information, some closure on this deal. So yesterday, I presented a letter of appreciation to David and Josh, and we just wanted to let the public know what a great job they did. Next slide, please. So forgive the logo there. I'm a big Bruce Lee and Chuck Norris fan, so that I did that for a little bit of humor. But I wanted to talk about and actually say thank you to several of those listening today on the call. We were able to put together a use of force experiential learning class on Saturday, March 6th. We invited members of the council, the mayor, and members of our Race and Equity Advisory Board. And what we were trying to do is, as we've been working with the board, with our policies and procedures, we're developing the charter and moving forward with all the work that's being done with police reform and race and equity. We're constantly adapting and changing what we do and trying to get better, particularly in our use of force realm. But we don't always do a great job of updating and providing context and information and background as to the why and what we do in terms of use of force, procedures, and tactics. So we took an opportunity to do that on Saturday the 6th. We'd done it before with our group. We found it to be very beneficial. What I've learned over the time is that if we get an opportunity outside of a crisis to have people take a look at what we do, ask questions, and give us input, we get a lot more buy-in. We get a lot more trust built ahead of time. So we took an opportunity to do that. So we brought out our members, as mentioned before. We spent 2-3 hour sessions going over some real basic use of force scenarios, some hands-on training and skills, and experiential, letting people try different things to see what it was like. And we ran a couple of scenarios. And I just was very proud of the effort. I was very glad to see the interaction, the questions, and the input. And I just want to take a moment to say thank you to Council Members Troutner, Fincher, Larimer, and Michaud, Mayor Ralph, and then several members of our Race and Equity Board. They came out on a Saturday, gave up their time, but I think it helped to give them a better understanding, as well as give us some input and better understanding coming back from the community. So just a shout out to say thank you. We will look to do this again, schedule future classes, and do ongoing topics. And we are looking to try and add this component to our community academies that we do twice a year, so we can do a better job of communicating the what and why about what we do. So, next slide, please. I want to take a moment next to talk about and give some credit to our hardworking detectives unit. We had some high numbers last year in 2020, and I'll go through what they looked like. We had 1,398 detective assigned cases, which is really high. 955 of those were persons crimes, which means they involved the crime of violence. 443 of those were property crimes. And then 226 of those were responses to where we had someone in custody. And why that matters is that there's a rush filing requirement to get a case filed in 72 hours if someone's in custody. So it really ramps up and crunches the timelines for detectives to get their cases together. Unfortunately, we had a high number of homicides last year. We had 8 homicides total and 69 call-outs, which means 69 times during the year last year, detectives were called at home, away from their families on weekends or nights to come in and do the on-scene investigation of some major crime of violence. So looking at our homicides, and again, very tragic to have 8, but from the detectives' work and dedication, I am proud to report that all 8 of those cases have been cleared, meaning that they have been solved and charges are either pending or have been filed. So in 7 of the cases, suspects have already been taken into custody and are waiting charges and prosecution. And 1 is pending with the suspect identified in an ongoing investigation. So what that equates to is one of the metrics we use on the criminal side of things is the metrics of clearing cases, and 100% clearance of homicides for an entire year is very impressive. It's an indication of how hard the detectives work to make sure they get the evidence they need, and really an effort to bring justice and closure for the families of the deceased and the victims. So we have one of the most experienced and capable detective units anywhere in King County and probably in the state. And again, their dedication to be willing to be on call and to get called out throughout the year is something that I'm very thankful for. They routinely see some of the worst incidents in our city. There's a lot of trauma that comes with those types of calls, and I just wanted to say thank you and take a moment to give the public an insight on how hard they work to bring closure to these cases. So thanks to our detectives unit. Next slide, please. So for many of you that follow us on social media, this will be something you saw earlier, but I wanted to take a second opportunity to thank the community for what was an incredible outpouring of support to help people in our community. As you probably saw in the Facebook posts and social media, we had an incident where our officers took 3 young children into protective custody so that we could try and place them with Child Protective Services. It took a while to get them connected with CPS. So our officers, using their own money, it happens quite regularly, fed the kids, hung out with them, and eventually they got tired and we don't have anywhere to put them. So we did a makeshift thing for them on the floor of our break room, and they sat there when the officers took a picture and we posted it. And that post got a lot of reactions and is indicative of our great community. Immediately, people started to message us that they wanted to help and donate to provide better circumstances for some of these kids that we have that we place from time to time with CPS. So our communications coordinator got to work with our comms team, and they scheduled a blanket drive. And boy, we had no idea what the response was going to be, but it was incredible. Here are some of the numbers. We received 298 blankets, 189 pillows, 135 sleeping bags, a bunch of pre-packed bags, about 30 of those with nice comfort items in them, packs of pillowcases, 38 of those, a couple of tents, and some pre-packed small art kits so the kids could have something to do while they were waiting. It was more than we imagined. It filled about a third of council chambers at one point, and it was just in a matter of hours that occurred. I think we ran the blanket drive for just about 3 or 4 hours, and what an incredible show of support and love and compassion from our community. We had so much of the supplies that we were able to donate a good portion of that to Kent Hope. As you know, Kent Hope does a lot of human services, but particularly they serve women and children, provide them shelter and housing. So good connection there. We still have lots of supplies available for hopefully what we won't need very often, but if we do, we have it. And I just want to say thanks to David who brought the truck out from Kent Hope, and Assistant Chief Kasner, our comms team, and our multimedia team for partnering with Kent and making this happen. So that's just want to end on a good note there. So with that completes my report. Madam Mayor, unless there are questions.
All right. Thank you, Chief. I can tell you it's probably a good thing council's not meeting in person because council chambers is full of those donations. It was extremely heartwarming to see the outpouring from this community, and once again proving when we say we are Kent, that is what we mean. We are here taking care of each other and making sure, especially that our kiddos in a time of crisis have, there's nothing better than a warm, snuggly blanket or a sleeping bag to crawl into. So with that, any questions for the Chief? All right, I am not seeing any hands raised, so thank you for that presentation tonight, Chief, and please pass our gratitude along to the detectives. That's an impressive clear rate on those really tragic cases from last year. All right, moving on in our agenda, item number 5 is reports from council and staff. This is an opportunity for the community to hear about meetings that are held outside of the regular council meetings or committee of the whole. All of our council members are involved in a variety of boards and commissions outside of council, making sure that the voice of Kent is represented and that we are that our opinions, thoughts, needs, all of those things are coming back, and Kent's being represented at the regional level. I will start with a couple of events that have happened over the last 2 weeks since we met. Yesterday, had an opportunity to go to Showware Center. Congresswoman Schreier was at Showware Center visiting the vaccination clinic that is being operated by King County Public Health. Many of you might know she's a pediatrician, so experienced in giving vaccines. She held a press conference and then went over and put her lab coat on and gave a few vaccines out yesterday. So I had a chance to go over and thank her personally for her support of vaccinations across the country, as well as the support for local governments coming out of the most recent CARES Act. A nice opportunity to tell her thank you. Last week, we had the Transportation Policy Board. I'm the vice chair of that board. We had several presentations. The first one was around access to transit. It's a little bit of a confusing term. What access to transit means is how people get to transit. So whether you come by foot, on bicycle, in a car, it's not like, can I physically get on transit, but how do you get there and how do you then get on? And so we talked about the differences around the region in access to transit. So a significant number of riders in, say, downtown Seattle, upwards of 60%, come via some other form of transit or by bike or on foot. That's different in, say, the South County. If you think about Kent, it's not as easy for our residents to bike down the West Hill or up the East Hill to get to transit down in the valley. So there's still a need for things like park and rides and parking garages. We also talked a lot about transportation demand management. So generally we think about that as like the hot lanes, where people are, if you're willing to pay, you can take that quicker route. You offset your hours so you don't get stuck in congestion. That dynamic pricing that's on a lot of the toll roads in Kent or in the state. We also talked about telework being a way to control transportation. So if more people are teleworking, then there's less people during times of congestion. And also had a report out on the pilot project for pay by mile. So it's the replacement for the gas tax, a potential replacement. The pilot's been done, and we're legislature and the Transportation Commission are still working through the details on that. Want to wrap up with just a reminder that Kent 101 is going on. We have over 50 students enrolled this session. It's our civics class for Kent. Last week, we had a fantastic presentation by our Economic and Community Development Department. We still have Public Works and Parks coming up, but great response, and we're hoping to run that class again in the fall. So with that, I am going to turn it over to our Chief Administrative Officer, Derek Matheson.
All right. Thank you, Mayor, and good evening, Council. I have a few items for you this evening. First, wanted to let you know we're making progress on a resolution that will revise the City Council rules to reinstate the committee system on September 1st. We should be able to bring you a draft of those rules just for information and discussion at your committee of the whole meeting next Tuesday. We've also scheduled the second day of the City Council's 2021 retreat. It will be Friday, May 7th at the Kent Senior Activity Center, and our facilitator will reach out to you individually to talk about agenda items as we get into April. As council members are aware, last week Congress adopted and the president signed the American Rescue Plan Act, and that act includes $65 billion in what's called coronavirus local fiscal recovery funds for local governments. And that includes, by our best estimate, a little over $28 million So to get in front of this opportunity, staff suggests that the council put together an ad hoc committee that would work together for about a month and then recommend a high-level framework to invest Kent's funds in the organization and in the community. So I'm interested in your feedback on that concept in the coming days. And with the council president's permission, we'll put that on your committee agenda next week for further discussion. We have no executive session this evening, and the rest of my written report is in your packet. So thank you very much.
All right. Thank you, Derek. I will now turn it over to Council President Troutner.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We had two workshops earlier this evening. The first was on the Kent Housing Options Plan, which is also known as KHOP. As you can imagine, this is a lengthy plan, and today we talked about a couple chapters in that. The first being community and stakeholder engagement. They've currently had 3 public meetings to introduce the concept of middle housing, to get input and have conversation. They've also held some focus groups. They had a youth sustainability ambassadors and also the Kent Community Development Collaborative. And what they've learned from that is that there's a need for larger housing units for multi-generational families. There was some talk about safety concerns and also the need to partner with agencies to help bridge the gap for families with language barriers and also those that have limited access to programs. We also talked about different priorities throughout this process, including some current, near-term, and high priorities for updating the mobile home park preservation policy, multifamily development code collaboration, middle housing zoning coding, and then also refining the ADU codes. And then lastly, evaluate, encourage, and expand the transit-oriented development near the eye line. We talked about medium priorities, also existing and continuing to improve current priorities, and then next steps. So more will be coming back to council on an upcoming workshop, and then also on April 20th, we'll have a public hearing, and then also it will come back to council in May. What they're looking right now at is some information that they've gathered on mobile home park preservation policy, and that data will be coming back for council to look at. We also had a workshop on the operation and maintenance facility and heard about their environmental impact statement. So as you've heard us talk about in the past, Sound Transit is currently looking at 3 site alternatives for their operation and maintenance facility, including one at the Midway landfill between 246th and 252nd in Kent. There's also 2 sites in Federal Way. One is the 336th Street alternative, and then also South 344th Street alternative. So they're looking at comparisons as they look at these 3 sites, including impacts to each for businesses and residents, the timing it would take to construct these sites, also cost estimates. So currently they're doing some public outreach to get information on what people in those affected areas would be affected by. And we won't have a final decision until probably the middle or end of 2022, but there will be more information that will come back to council as they gather feedback from the community. I sit on the Regional Transit Committee. We meet tomorrow. And as you can imagine, metro services have been greatly affected because of the pandemic. So tomorrow we're going to have a briefing on service restoration and service restructures. And then I also sit on the Regional Law, Safety, and Justice Committee, and we meet on Thursday, the 25th. With that, I will turn to my colleagues and see what committees or meetings they've been having recently, and I will start with Councilmember Michaud.
Thank you, Council President. So I, along with some of my fellow council members, attended the police use of force training and found it very valuable and fun and embarrassing. So I just want to thank the officers and Jaylene and Steve who were there on a Saturday. So I really appreciate it. It was a good experience. Okay, I serve on the Regional Water Quality Committee, and we approved our 2021 work plan. And some of the things that includes is our monthly workshop on the Clean Water Plan, sewer rate discussions and nutrient removal solutions. We are hoping to bring the discussion of sewer rates to the Sound Cities Association PIC meeting, as it impacts many cities who are often left out of the sewer rate discussions, even though they are the ones who get blamed for raising your rates. Really, that's a King County decision. So we want to make sure that cities have input on that rate. And that is all I have to report.
Thank you, Councilmember Michaud. Councilmember Corr.
Thank you, Madam President. I serve as the chair for Puget Sound Clean Air Agency Advisory Council. We had our meeting on Wednesday, March 10th. We had update on our transportation climate planning. And we also had update on wood smoke programs review, which is a program run by Puget Sound Clean Air Agency to provide rebates for individuals who have wood smokes that the heaters they have that are bad for the environment. So they have seen improvements regardless of COVID and individuals being home in the smoke, in the air quality. So that was surprising to me. I also was part of a meeting with Association of Washington Cities, a meeting they had with Senator Murray and Senator Cantwell on the same day, actually, March 10th. And there was a great discussion on American Rescue Act, and which was passed that same morning. This meeting with our senators and a congressional delegation is part of National League of Cities, which is usually we travel to DC. But this year, because of COVID, it was virtual. So a lot of members of Association of Washington Cities were able to attend that meeting. Along with that, we had meeting with Sound Transit last week. Some of the council members separate from today about the operation and maintenance facility. So that was also another great meeting. I also usually sit on a weekly basis with public health on faith-based organizations meeting. And what we are seeing is some of the faith-based organizations are not following guidelines. So we want to make sure that as people are getting vaccinated, please continue to wear your masks. Please continue to maintain social distancing so we can get out of this pandemic, because not everyone is vaccinated at this point. So let's continue following the guidelines so we don't go back. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Corr. Councilmember Larimer.
Thank you, Council President. So I sit on the King County Aging and Disabilities Advisory Council, and we met on Friday, and we had a presentation from 3 case managers in Adam Smith's office. And so Adam Smith is the representative for the 9th District, which covers part of Kent. So it's especially interesting. And what I didn't realize is that out of their district office in Renton, these 3 employees do nothing but connect constituents with federal services. And it was really interesting to learn that there are, case management services available, everything from a student who's seeking a military academy admissions letter to, flag requests for funerals, which can be requested actually directly on the website. Any interaction with a government agency, the case managers can assist with that, whether it's just connecting you with the right person at that federal agency or actually, helping you work through the process. Some of the other things they do is help, small businesses in their district connect and get plugged into the federal procurement process. And that's quite that can be quite a task to get onto the right list and get connected there. So they help with that. Tours is another thing that you can request directly from their website, and they will help facilitate official tours if you're visiting the DC area. It was like a 45-minute presentation, and there was a lot that that these 3 individuals help with that I was surprised to learn the depth of the advocacy and help that is provided out of that office in Renton for a lot of Kent's residents, and then also for the Kent residents that live in the other congressional districts, similar services are available as well through those district offices. So really great presentation, and you can look up the services that are available, and for the flag requests and the tours, you can you can request those directly at adamsmith.house.gov. So, and that is it for my report this week.
Thank you, Councilmember Larimer. Councilmember Boyce.
Thank you, Madam President. I sit on the Sound City Association, Vice Chair for the PIC Committee. We did something a little different this time versus having multiple things on our agenda item. We focused on two, did a deep dive on the countywide policy plan, which Councilmember Core is deeply involved in. We also talked about the Best Start for Kids. As you know, the Best Start for Kid levy was in place in 2015, 6-year levy. And at the time, that levy was roughly 14 cents per thousand assessed, raised about $440 million. It expires December 31st, 2021. So they're looking to put it back on the ballot in August. And there's a significant cost increase. So they're looking at putting it at 19 cents per thousand assessed value, and they're hoping to raise about $811 million. So that's a huge increase, and a lot of dialogue around that. Some of the dialogue was, a lot of people believe that this is a great program and is really helping and impacting childcare and needy for people who need it. But at the same time, they said, why can't we just do a renewal? And because, based on what economy and things going on, it seemed like a 35% increase when it comes out to. So, we kind of talked about it and had a presentation from the county, but that's kind of where we at right now on that. So, and that was about it. And that's all I have, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councilmember Boyce. Councilmember Thomas.
Thank you, Madam President. And I serve on the Puget Sound Regional Fire Authority, along with our president, Tony, and also a council member, Boyce. And we will be meeting visually tomorrow night at 5:30. If you need to find access to that meeting on Zoom, you just call the fire department at 253-856-4300. And that concludes my report.
Thanks, Councilmember Thomas. Councilmember Fincher.
Thank you, Madam Chair. King CD, King Conservation District, the website kingcd.org. Be sure to go there before the 23rd to vote for the Board of Supervisors. So that election is now open. It is a special election. You actually print out, or you're able to print out your ballot online. You can also vote electronically, but that's an important one. It's not one that is known as well as our regular elections, but it's just as important. So be sure to go kingcd.org. The Arts Commission, we are winding up with our Looking Forward exhibit. So you have until the 31st of this month to get any of your entries in to the contest that you want to do. And there is a new theme. I will not tell you what the new theme is, but I will give you a hint that think of blooming. So blooming. We've looked back over the pandemic. We've looked forward, which is the current theme. So now think blooms and blooming. And then so I did Mental Illness and Drug Dependency Advisory Committee. We will meet next week. And just a reminder to remember what we said about the therapeutic courts last council meeting, and that we're looking at how to do the budgeting with that and how to get more money into the therapeutic side, because the same pot of money, courts are taking more money, which is leaving less money for the therapeutic side. So let that room around your head to give us any thoughts and input that you have on that. And I think that's it. I did Arts Commission, KCD, and MID. So that is it. Remember to vote.
Thank you, Councilmember Fincher. And just a reminder, I talked about the workshops earlier. If anyone is ever interested, they're very informational, and it gives council time to learn about things that are coming up, and things that we may move forward to other council meetings. So those are all available online. So I encourage you to go back and take a look at those if you're interested in any of our workshop topics. And with that, Madam Mayor, we are done with our reports.
All right. Thank you, Council President. Item number 6 on our agenda is public hearing, and we do not have a public hearing this evening. That brings us to public comment. This is the opportunity for the public to speak to the council or mayor on issues that relate to the business of the city of Kent or agenda items. Comments that do not relate to the city of Kent are not permitted, and additionally, the state of Washington prohibits people from using public comment to support or oppose any ballot measures or candidates for office. Kim, our clerk, will call our speakers in order. Please remember you've got 3 minutes. There will be a timer on the screen. If you can state your name and city of residence for the record. At the end of public comment, we will admit the documents that we've received to date into the record as well. With that, Kim, I will turn it over to you to call our speakers.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The first speaker that I have is Todd Minor.
Thank you so much for the opportunity to address the council and Madam Mayor and Council President. Hey, a couple of things I would just say. First of all, I had an opportunity to spend time with the brave men and women of the Kent Police Department and go through that training. It was eye-opening. I learned a bunch. I had a bunch of fun. And as Zandria, Councilmember Zandria also said, I was embarrassed by my lack of ability to apply handcuffs to someone who was not compliant. I would say what was really awesome was to see the passion and the pride of that group, of how they just want to bridge the gap between the police department and the community. And I think that spirit is going to go well if we can continue to accelerate that. So that was that one. Second, I wanted to make mention, look, I know that there potentially is an opportunity to bring more affordable housing to the city of Kent. As a business owner, someone who pays well above minimum wage, I'm talking like $5 above or $7 above minimum wage. I really want to create a pathway for people who work at my small business to own a home. And, the average home price in Kent is like $500,000. And even with the 3.5% down, you can do an FHA loan. Like, that's still a significant amount of money. So any opportunity that we have to bring more affordable housing to Kent, we should seize that opportunity. Land, specific land that is already deemed commercial, that's going to get built on anyway. Again, I was on the Park and Rec Commission for, some time. I want open space, I want parks, but if it's already deemed commercial to be used for commercial purposes, like, we should be jumping at the opportunity to help people transform their generational wealth and own a home. Like, the whole notion of affordable housing in the Puget Sound is a little bit tongue-in-cheek because it's so expensive to live here. But if we could get an average home or townhouse down, $100,000 or so from what an average house costs in Kent, we should jump at that opportunity. We shouldn't let petty politics with the city of Auburn get in the way. Like, this pissing match between Auburn and Kent just has to end. Like, this is what's best for the community as a region. Let's get more affordable housing here. And it can't be just the opinion of one person who has influence with someone on the council. Like, we really need to look at this and say, we want to do what's best and provide affordable housing in the city of Kent, and so that way we can continue to thrive. And ultimately, like, this is going to create more wealth for people who are just trying to get started. So thank you so much for taking a moment to listen to that. I know that there's counter arguments, and I have empathy there, but I want to get people in homes so they can transfer wealth down to their family and then end this ridiculous debate between us and Auburn. It's just ridiculous.
Thank you. The next speaker is Shahira Lopez.
Good evening, everyone. Mayor Ralph, President Troutner, council members, members of the Kent City staff, and fellow community members. My name is Shahida Lopez, and I am a resident of the city of Kent, specifically the Bridges community in Auburn. I would first like to thank Chief Padilla and council members Fincher, Macho, Larimer, and Carr for their willingness to engage the community in conversations about racial equity. Chief Padilla responded to the community's request by partnering with other cities across South King County to develop a model for a co-responder mental health crisis response team, which once implemented will help ensure dignity, compassion, and meeting the needs of residents is the focus of calls involving mental health crisis. Also, Chief Padilla has listened to the community's feedback by agreeing to pilot a series of training sessions that will hopefully be adopted to help build the type of understanding that allows for compassionate interactions between Kent police officers and Black and Brown residents. Finally, as a resident of the Bridges community, I want to share that I believe that the perspective that my neighbors are about to share tonight do not represent the perspective of everyone in Bridges, and may not represent the perspective of other residents in the city of Kent. The Bridges community is a subsection of Kent that does not reflect the Kent demographics. The median household income in Bridges is significantly higher than the median income of the entire city of Kent, and the racial demographics are also different. And ultimately, their collective hopes and dreams for the future may also be different. What I know for sure, though, is that their claim that having multifamily housing in Bridges will have a negative impact on Bridges and the surrounding communities and on the environment is rooted in misinformation and a need to protect their suburban lifestyles. They believe that high-density housing will have a negative impact on their quality of life, but personal preferences aside, multifamily housing plays an increasingly important role in workforce housing, providing homes for teachers, firefighters, police officers, healthcare workers, and public employees who may otherwise not be able to afford to live in our community because of the cost of single homes. These vital workers contribute to the community, but their incomes are far less than what is required to support a comfortable middle-class life. The residents who are against this multifamily housing publicly share a concern for their wetlands, but privately they share a concern with traffic, lowered property values, overcrowded schools, or a change in community's character. And they believe that the proposed multifamily project will worsen their existing lifestyles. I want to encourage the City Council to dig deeper into these misconceptions, educate yourselves and the community, and make a decision that is best for the entire city of Kent and not just the residents of Bridges. Thank you so much.
Thank you. The next speaker is Brian Gilderoy.
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Hi, my name is Brian Gilderoy. I live in Seattle and I work at Kent Fred Meyer's. I am your friendly neighborhood produce clerk at the East Hill Fred Meyer's store, and I have worked in grocery for almost 20 years. And for the last 10 years, I have worked at your local Kent Fred Meyer's. I am here today to ask the City Council to please consider a hazard pay ordinance for the grocery workers in Kent. I have seen a lot in my time as a grocery worker, but nothing has prepared for me for what I have witnessed the last year and continuing right now. At this beginning of this deadly plague, my fellow essential workers and I were called heroes. We were even given hero pay for our efforts. But now those efforts seem to be in vain. Last May was our last payment for hero pay. And yet this deadly plague continues to affect our community. My fellow workers and I still work in hazardous conditions brought on by this disease. Most of our customers are great, but some do not wear masks or even properly. Most don't even abide by social distancing rules. My fellow grocery workers are exhausted, overwhelmed, overworked, stressed, and worried all the time of bringing home this deadly disease. All we ask of you today is to please consider bringing the hazard pay ordinance like the one passed in Seattle and Burien to the great city of Kent. And thank you. And I yield the rest of my time to my colleague, ready to speak.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Lindsay Young.
Hi, my name is Lindsay Young. I work at Kent 172 at Fred Meyer. I work with Brian as well. I live in the Kent area. I'm an assistant deli manager. I have 2 disabled children and have revamped my life from being a drug addict homeless on the streets with no car, no license. I've changed my life around completely. By the grace of God, I've been sober and clean now since 2/20/2008. I have a home, I have my children, and I have a full-time job that I love and am extremely dedicated to. I also am a shop steward for my department for the union. I'm a proud member of UFC 21. I'm also a third-generation UFC 21 member. I started when I was 15 at Safeway. Both my parents and grandparents retired. Every day I go to work in hopes that I do not contract COVID-19. Unfortunately, one of my coworkers was contracted with it, who I was in close proximity to just a few days ago. I have 2 disabled children with no immunity, as well as myself. I suffer from thyroidism. I beat cancer. I work anywhere from 55 to 65 hours a week. I have since COVID started. I'm dedicated and driven, but we all need help right now. We are barely making it on the wage we are given and need help to support our families, where most of our children are not in school. We need to support our companies without repercussions of our stores getting shut down. If the owner of Fred Meyer owns 13 yachts, we should be able to get an extra few dollars in our pockets. Because let's be honest, our $100 thank you bonus goes directly back into the owner's pockets. So please keep fighting for us. And as the governor and everybody is listening, we need help. Our coworkers are on the verge of losing homes, and we need our hazard payback. We've worked tirelessly and endlessly for months on end, and we deserve it. I really appreciate your time, and I hope you take this back into consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Jennifer Torrance.
Good evening, City Council members and Madam Mayor. I'm Jennifer Torrance of Kent, Washington, and I would like to share with you my statement in favor of our hazard pay as also a grocery worker. Working in retail or customer service is not for the faint of heart. We deal with the good, the bad, the ugly, and all in between. However, being an essential worker this last year has brought on a completely different challenge in the work field. I've been with Fred Meyer for practically 9 years and at the Kent Fred Meyer for about 5.5 years. Many of my coworkers and customers could tell you I'm one of the most kind, positive, bubbly, and professional people there is. But this year has broken me greatly. Here's just a couple of key examples of what came to mind with customer experiences and things that are company related from my perspective as to why our hazard pay should not go away. I've dealt with emotional and verbal abuse from customers since the beginning of this pandemic, having customers yell at me and my coworkers due to the changes of our return policy, not having high demand products in stock, and having to put limits on items is just the tip of the iceberg. As the customer service desk lead, there has definitely been a few notable experiences I personally dealt with that greatly put my health, coworkers' health, and customer health at risk. I remember having at least 2 customers who sneezed while I was helping them in line. They didn't sneeze. I apologize. Who sneezed as I was helping them. But by doing so, they proceed to take off their mask and sneeze around my desk area. They didn't sneeze into their elbow or tissue or even apologize. I also remember helping a woman who wasn't wearing a mask doing a Western Union transaction, who coughed, and her cough persisted, and it made me super uncomfortable. Most recently, there was a woman who I had to deny a non-receipt return from, who became extremely rude and disrespectful by using profanity and continued to take off her mask and cough at me, my coworkers, and other customers around the customer service desk area. Of course, I did the best to my ability to disinfect and clean my area. But as far as taking preventative measures, Fred Meyer and other grocery stores have been way behind the ball. Their focus has always been sales versus the safety of us associates. And to have our hazard pay be nothing more than temporary and our CEOs earn a handsome bonus is disgusting. This last year has been stressful on all of us in countless ways. But speaking as a grocery worker, we are essential. We deserve to get back our hazard pay and keep it until the pandemic is over. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is David Detweiler. I do not see David on the meeting. I'll go ahead and move on to Edie Leedy.
Thank you, council members and Mayor Ralph. My name is Edie Leedy and I live in Kent. Earlier today, I sent you all a petition signed by over now 540 people between Lee Hill and Kent. This is not a matter of one person with council connections. I had a very different speech planned for tonight, but I'm going to reserve those comments for when this is tabled to the next time you're going to vote on it. However, I want to thank those of the 4 of you who voted no on the amendment in the earlier March meeting last time, and those 3 of you who have been open-minded since then to do a deeper dive. Given the choice between townhomes and retail, Auburn would pick townhomes, as would Kent, because there are housing shortages. But what would they say and what would they choose from if they could make that decision for themselves? Their constituents have not been given public notice and also deserve to be heard. When there are 3 issues still on the table, like insufficient public notice, legal vesting being in question, and the impact to the environment and area residents, it's important that the council spend as much time as necessary researching these things to make a good educated decision. I don't dispute that affordable living is needed, but it can be done in a way that won't negatively affect the wetlands and Auburn's density. And it needs to be done in a way and in a place where it can be legally done. So we appreciate all of you who have taken the time to look further into this. And I welcome the opportunity in the future to speak with each of you in regards to any questions that you have about this. I do not represent the entire community of the Bridges. I represent myself, but I also am a community member of Lee Hill since 2003. And many of those Auburn residents are my friends and associates. And I think it's important that Auburn be looped in more than just conversations between Kent and Auburn. This is not a pissing match between the cities. They've been working very hard to try to make annexation happen. And for that, we appreciate all of you. But there are other issues at hand here, not the least of which are legal ones and how Kent did or didn't follow processes. And that's the real key thing. A repeat of Pine Tree Park. I don't want my tax dollars going to settling lawsuits that could happen. So I appreciate all of you and the research that you're doing to make a good, well-informed decision, as do another 540 people between Lee Hill and Kent. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. The next speaker is Marlene Creaser.
Good evening. My name is Marlene Creaser, and we moved into the Bridges neighborhood 6 years ago. Prior to our purchase, I researched what was planned for the vacant land south of the Bridges. The builder's response was in sync with what I found on a website advertised on the sign posted on that vacant land. The website showed an architectural rendering of a quaint light retail area with attractive gathering areas, cobblestone paths, and a senior center of some kind. We were excited that we would be able to easily walk to this fun area from our new home. Fast forward a few years, nothing happened. The posted sign went away and the land was still vacant. The talk around the neighborhood over the years was that it felt like it was a bait and switch, that Oak Point never really intended to put in retail and assisted living and just said they were going to do that to attract home buyers. In the City of Kent public records, it states that in 2007, Oak Point was issued a conditional use permit for an assisted living facility. However, such permits become invalid if construction hasn't begun or use hasn't commenced within 3 years. So in 2010, that permit would have expired because nothing had been done to develop that facility, and I couldn't find evidence of another permit being issued after that. So if in fact no permit was valid during the 2015 timeframe, we and many other home buyers were very misled by Oak Point advertising something that at that point in time, they had no legal permission to construct. Fast forward to 2020, my daughter and her husband purchased a home in the Oak Point development, 10 Trails and Black Diamond. There's an aggressively advertised retail space proposed there too. The first home there was completed in 2018. So when I asked why the 2-year delay in starting the retail section, I was told it was because of COVID. However, in an article in the Covington Reporter newspaper dated July 2018, Oak Point's director of marketing stated the retail area would have ground broken by the fall of 18 with businesses opening in 2019. That was long before COVID. Perhaps there's a pattern here, advertising retail and amenities to attract buyers and then not following through with the plans. On the current Oak Point website, there's a section entitled Completed Projects where the Bridges project is posted and shows the area south of the Bridges as already developed into what looks like buildings that are not homes. Oak Point claims that retail is not viable in this area, but perhaps their retail rent prices are too high for many retailers. I'm asking you to require Oak Point to complete this project the way they have advertised for many years. Also, please hold them accountable for the current wetlands setback requirements, not the requirements of years ago. I appreciate your time, and I respectfully submit my comments to you this evening. Thank you so much.
Thank you. The next speaker is Dean Compan.
Yes, thank you.
Go ahead, we can hear you.
Thank you for this. Thank you very much. Thank you to the City of Kent Mayor, Council President, Council members, and staff. My name is Dean Compan. I'll be commenting this evening on the Bridges proposals. I live in an adjacent community named Vintage Hills. I believe it is imperative that the City of Kent and the City of Auburn create a cooperative stance on the annexation process for the Bridges. Admittedly, it's been an unusual circumstance to have a City of Kent island within the City of Auburn. The planning needs to incorporate both the needs, policies, and community input from the City of Auburn before any decisions are made. And I believe that the City of Auburn has the best tools for this community, given that the City of Auburn incorporates geographically this entire area. Thank you, and I yield back the balance of my time. Appreciate the opportunity to provide some input.
Thank you. The next speaker is Leslie Carr.
Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
My name is Leslie Carr, and I live in the Bridges in what we call Aubent. We're not here nor there. But in light of the change to the agenda, I'll reserve my comments for if and when this issue comes before the council again. I do ask the council, when considering this issue, to please look at Kent's mission statement and how it fits in and reflects on your decision. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is Jim Carr.
Yes, this is Jim Carr. In view of what's happened tonight, I will withhold comments on the proposed expansion of the bridges until the City Council revisits the issue. Thank you for your time, and goodbye.
Thank you. The next speaker is Kim Anardi.
This is Kim. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
I want to thank the mayor of Kent and all the members of the council for this opportunity to talk to you. I want to say I don't know any of you, except I do know Les Thomas, and it's nice to see him there. I have something to say. I live in the Bridges, and what I wanted to say is I want to help you with your decision making in terms of how to handle this situation. When I moved here, when my wife and I moved here, but first of all, I should say, I love the city of Auburn. I've lived in Auburn as long as Les Thomas has lived in Kent.
Go Huskies.
I have tremendous respect for the city of Kent, and I love the way that the city of Kent and Auburn have always worked together, and as they should. I mean, we're next door neighbors. The help that I want to provide you with your decision making is this. When I bought this place, it was said, and I was told, as most of the members that bought in here were told, that this was going to be turned over to the city of Auburn. And if it's not going to be turned over, I'm feeling like it was a kind of a bait and switch type of situation. So living up to what I feel is what was said here is one thing. The other thing is I appeal to your common sense. And the common sense is this. Looking at the map, you see that this is an island in the middle of Auburn. It makes absolutely no... If you gave that map to fifth graders and asked them this question, they would all say the same thing. It makes no sense. So it's not that complicated to figure out. It's going to be, and it should be, turned over to Auburn. It was always said it was going to be turned over to Auburn. And let's have a little common sense in government and try and do the right thing by recognizing this island in the middle of Auburn. It's ridiculous when you think about it, the amount of time that's spent with all of us discussing it. It's crazy. Anyways, I'll be glad to talk to you further. I thank you for the time you've given me, and I appreciate the work that you have to do being on the city council and all that. And hopefully we can get this resolved. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is Kim Hytrack.
Is anybody talking about why it takes so long?
Kim, can you speak up?
Yes, this is Kim Hytrack.
Perfect.
Good evening. Thank you, Mayor Ralph and council members. I am a resident of Crystal Meadows neighborhood, which is on the west boundary in Auburn of Plat 3990 of the wetland area that is proposed to be rezoned by the Bridges. And I understand we've tabled all that, but I want to reiterate what Edie said about the lack of notification. We have 8 properties along that boundary, 7 houses, and 1 community park. Only 1 homeowner was notified. And our the Crystal Meadows Homeowners Association was not notified. We own that park. And I would have been the person that should have been notified about that. So that causes us a little concern that something might not be happening as it should be. Also, the fact that Oak Point has indicated in their PUD that they don't need to follow the best science practices about the wetlands, that they plan to build with a 30-foot setback versus what is now current practices, 160-foot setback, is very concerning because wetlands are very important, not only to the animals, but to us humans. It does a lot of good things for our environment. And I respect that the need for affordable care, affordable housing. I respect that. The problem is that this intersection, 124th and 304th, is actually a very congested intersection. It's a roundabout. You have a lot of traffic in the morning when Green River is in session. There are 2 elementary schools on 304th, and at about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, 304th is completely bogged down. So the idea of putting in 150 townhomes with maybe 600 residents and 300 cars is a little overwhelming, especially on just 13 acres of land. If it was rated at a single family residence, that would be approximately 50 homes. And also within 1 mile radius, we currently have over 100 houses being built. So it's not so much that we don't want affordable housing, it's just that we feel that's not the right place for it because of the sensitive nature of the wetlands and the congestion that already exists at that site. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The next speaker is Art Weichbrot.
Yes, hi, good evening. My name is Art Weichbrot. I hope you can hear me okay. I am a resident, City of Auburn. I also live in the Crystal Meadows neighborhood, which is adjacent to the Bridges property. I've lived here since prior to the Bridges property development. In fact, I remember when that was still the City of Kent Water Department's impoundment property prior to the sale to Yarrow, I believe it was Yarrow Bay, and which is now Oak Point. Originally there was supposed to be over 800 houses there. Fortunately, now there's, 450. I mean, the frustration I think many of the neighbors have, again, in the City of Auburn, we've heard over and over again, is that, again, there's this island, the City of Kent, that is governed by the City of Kent, and the residents of the City of Auburn feel like they don't have any say. To speak to my neighbor, Kim Hytrack, to her point, and even Mr. Miner's point, it's anybody I've talked to, it's not that we're opposed to, again, affordable housing or even the townhomes. It's the way that this process has been delivered, and the fact that, again, we've heard several times the term bait and switch tonight, either from the builder, and with all due respect to the city council, I'm not saying being deceptive, but I think people just feel like we haven't had an opportunity to the governance for us in the City of Auburn versus the City of Kent. We know the City of Auburn will annex us eventually, but it's just we feel like we just haven't had the opportunity to be represented in these decisions. I understand you have a very, very difficult job, and I fully respect that. I would invite, and I even sent an email to one of the council members tonight, to come do a walk around with me and maybe one of my other neighbors to walk through what we've experienced in the last approximately, when was that sold? 2004 approximately. How many years that we've been staring at that patch of land on the corner from the time that it was a 60-foot high pile of dirt that the four-wheelers were going on, and I couldn't get Kent PD to respond because it just wasn't a high priority call, to now where people do still continue to dump garbage. Trust me, nobody wants to see that develop more than many of the neighbors here, but we just feel that the current uses proposed is not appropriate. Be the traffic or the wetlands. It's just it just doesn't fit with what we have in this neighborhood. I appreciate the opportunity to speak tonight. Again, I know it's not an easy decision for you. I appreciate that that it has been tabled for a future date, and I'll probably speak again at that time. So thank you for my time.
Thank you. The next speaker is Rick Ishii-Huffer.
All right. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi there. Well, originally I was going to join tonight to talk about the bridges, but first I want to give a shout out to the people over at Fred Meyer and in the grocery workers unions. I absolutely support them, and as a local Fred Meyer shopper, I live halfway between two, so you can never tell which one I'm going to show up at. But at both of them, I have seen the Fred Meyer workers constantly abused and berated and just attacked and assaulted during this pandemic. And I've seen a couple of them in tears over treatment from their customers. And I've talked to a few of them about what's going on, and they're absolutely right. The company does not care about them. The corporate line is the customer can do whatever they want to you, and that's just how it's going to be. They have actually actively disempowered the frontline workers, and only the senior most manager on duty can do anything about anything at any time now. And so these people deserve to be paid what they deserve. So I absolutely 100% support them. I originally joined tonight to talk about the bridges development. I did want to touch on the affordable housing aspect. I think affordable housing is a buzzword that all of these developers like to use to talk to city councils to convince them that they're going to make housing affordable. When bridges went in, they had legal condos, which are technically separate houses, go in at 30% less than the standard single family home price. And they're still about 18% less than the houses across the street from them. So it's more affordable, but the builder just wants to overdevelop the land and get rid of environmental regulations just so they can make a buck and leave behind some townhomes. They're going to move on. They don't care about the city of Kent, and they do not care about the city of Auburn, and they don't care one bit about anyone who lives nearby or who moves into those houses. They just want their money. That's what they're after, and they want to overdevelop. There's absolutely opportunities for, small houses to be built in all sorts of places. This is not the spot. If you want to use the original land for it, that's fine. The reason I'm able to own a single family home in this neighborhood is because I got one of those 3.5% government loans when I was 29. I saved up that 3.5% buying and selling DVDs. I was making $1.49 profit on each one. I saved that 3.5% to buy my first condo, sort of a townhome, in the absolute cheapest place in the neighborhood which I had grown up in. And I was able to make money off of that, sell it, and now live in a single family home. So I absolutely get that, home ownership. But there's lots of places where condos and apartments are going in, where condo development corporations from around the world are making cash. Those lots should be zoned for just townhomes so that people can create wealth for themselves and their families. Thank you so much, and have a wonderful rest of your night, Madam Mayor, and each and every one of the council members.
Thank you. The next speaker is Matthew Quarton. I do not see him on the meeting. The next speaker is Jean Pierce. I do not see him in the meeting. The next speaker is Sean Roller.
Good evening, Sean Roller, resident of Auburn. Good evening, Mayor Ralph, Council President Troutner, and members of the council. Even though the item has been removed from the agenda, I am here tonight to speak against the proposed approval of the Bridges Oak Point Ordinance number 4401. As this property is uniquely situated inside of Auburn, any changes to ordinance are potentially burdensome to the city of Auburn and its residents. In Exhibit A of the ordinance documentation, it states, changing the site's designation from urban separator to multifamily will encourage more variety of housing types since Kent's residential areas are majority single family. However, within a mile south of this tract are thousands of apartments and townhomes recently constructed with extremely high rents and sales prices. Exhibit A also states, the site is located at the intersection of two minor arterials, so designated by the city of Auburn. Multifamily development on the site would be compatible with the intent of this policy, end quote. With the population explosion that has happened in this area, these minor arterials are extremely congested and have become unsafe. In addition, the burden of improving safety and access on these roads directly falls on the city of Auburn and its residents. Lastly, Exhibit A states, Any development that occurs as a result of redesignating the site to LDMF will not adversely affect public health, safety, or general welfare. End quote. With 3 elementary schools, 1 middle school, and 1 high school located within walking distance of this proposed development, and limited infrastructure in place, adding extra traffic puts Auburn students and staff at risk when they're going to and from school. As an adult, I know I am very concerned for my safety when I'm on those roads, yet alone the safety of our children who are not as aware of the dangers. In addition, future school-age children living in the proposed development will attend Auburn schools, putting an undue burden on an already stressed school system. While discussions have happened between Kent and Auburn officials, these conversations seem to be limited and without detailed discussion. I urge you to consider planning with Auburn officials in a more robust manner, allowing them to gather more information from citizens and consider their input before approving this amendment to the ordinance. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. The next speaker is David Blair.
Hi, I'm David Blair.
Go ahead.
Okay. Speaking tonight about the tenant evictions, 10-day, 20-day notice to evict, and I would strongly recommend that that be moved up to 60 days. I'm the executive director of Kent Tenant Association, and many of my members stated to me that the 10 or 20 days to vacate is really bad news. Number one, it's impossible to pack up everything that they have to move out, let alone getting help to move, finding a place to move to, and money to move on. Most of the people that I'm associated with are seniors, and most of them are on either SSA, SSI, or SSDI for their income with no other income. Some of them do have a pension, but that's nothing to look at. They're essentially all low-income people. Places to move to are asking way too much money for them to move in. First of all, they want the first, last, and security or damage deposit, of which they're lucky to get even the first month's rent available to them. There's not that many low-cost housing available. They're usually filled up. And so basically what we have here is, well, let's put it this way: time to look, money to move on, and people to help them to move. Potentially, it's a homeless situation for them. I'd like to thank members of the council that are addressing this issue, and thank you, Mayor, for letting me talk.
Thank you. The next speaker is Anita Lane Blair.
Hi, my name is Anita Lane Blair. And we live in Kent. I'm here because I have a real concern for our senior citizens and what happens when they are evicted with little or no notice. We lived in a shag apartment and our daughter rescued us and we got to an apartment nearby. Some of our fellow residents are not so lucky. A friend of ours, for no reason we know of, was given notice to move in 15 days. She was an elder of 90 years and had a bad heart. She could not wait. She was terrified. She didn't know what to do. She couldn't think of a place to go, and she had no one to help her. So, in 3 days after the notice, she died of a heart attack. Now, there are those who could say, well, that has nothing to do with the business facts. That's true. And there's nothing to say that the heart attack was caused by that. But as
For us, we've been senior citizens and worried about where we were going to go and what we can do. And I don't feel that I'm a helpless senior citizen, but many of them do, and many of them have terror attacks that are unreal. We have a mission statement for our Kent Tenant Association, and it says, "We are renters who seek justice to promote a sense of community strength, healthy living conditions, and safety for all renters. Together we can create renter-friendly policies. We can't do it without you, the council. We can't do it without you, Madam Mayor. We can't do it, and we don't have that many voices to speak for us. We're not helpless, we're not hopeless, and we're not idiots. We really care, and we've been good, solid citizens all of our lives. Please hear our voice. Please listen to us and give us the security that this nation promised when we started paying the income tax and all the other taxes that we have. We don't complain about that, but we do need that sense of security because homelessness is the scary world of hell for us. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is Jean Christensen. I do not see Jean in the meeting. The next speaker is Jeff Watling.
Thanks, Kim. Good evening, Mayor, Council. Jeff Watling, also resident of Lee Hill. I just did the math. 19-year resident of Lee Hill. I, along with Art and Kim, live in Crystal Meadows as well. Have loved raising our two daughters here on Lee Hill in a very richly diverse community. I too wanted to talk about the proposed land use amendment. Appreciate you tabling that. Before that, though, I want to give you a shout out. I noticed in the consent agenda the approval of park impact fees. I know that has been a long, many-year discussion and part of a much broader funding strategy that you've all undertaken to really address the infrastructure investment and reinvestment needs in Kent's fantastic parks and trail system. So hats off to you. Well done. Speaking on the land use amendment proposal, I guess I would just leave my comments to this, and you've heard it from my comments before and from others tonight. As you sort of pull back, look at the complexity of issues that you still need to look at in regards to the vesting questions and wetland questions, I think I ask you to consider the sequencing of this, doing this land use amendment first or annexation first. Yes, they are two separate issues, but I think there's a sequence you really need to consider. I think to pursue the land use amendment ahead of annexation is not the logical sequence, and would ask you to strongly consider a sequence that would really focus your time, your energy, your passion to sitting down with Auburn, get the de-annexation and annexation done. As a Lee Hill resident, I would love to have a discussion with my own planning commission, my own Auburn City Council, and a landowner of 13 acres, and talk about proposed development changes to that 13 acres. That 13 acres is critical and has a much tighter relationship to Auburn's comprehensive plan than it does Kent's. That's changed. When the PUD was first given to Kent, this was unincorporated King County. The fact that it's now Auburn is a significant change that I ask you to consider. And again, just think and strongly consider what the right sequence of those two steps are. Would love to help in any way that I can. So thanks for your time. Appreciate it. Good night.
Thank you. The next speaker is Brian Ross.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Appreciate the opportunity to speak to you tonight. Brian Ross, Oak Point from Bellevue. I wanted to provide a little bit of context here tonight. We've heard a lot about Auburn, and as you all know, we've been working on this site for upwards of 20 years now, and have been working with Auburn over the last 2 to 3 years. And, Auburn has decided that they don't want to annex, and I don't know why that is, but we've worked very closely with them, as the Kent City staff has as well. And so we were as surprised as anybody was when Auburn decided not to move forward with the annexation. But we've been very patient and do think it's time to move forward. So we look forward to the opportunity to continue working with you as we move forward. And I just wanted to, again, put in context what we're asking for in the comprehensive plan amendment is really the ability to do housing. It's not to exclude retail. We've tried for a number of years to do a retail-only development, and that just has not proven acceptable to the marketplace. Otherwise, that would have happened years ago. As you heard earlier, we actually had an approved plan, and we had a buyer at that time. Market conditions changed, the buyer backed out, and we were not able to then move forward with that. So our goal really is to add housing as a facilitator, both for the community, to add attainable housing prices as a path to ownership, but not necessarily to exclude retail. We've heard a lot about the coffee shop and the gathering place and so on. Those things can happen in conjunction with residential, but they can't happen on their own. So we look forward to continuing to work on this with you. I'll just say that I also have heard a little bit about traffic. Under every scenario that we've looked at on the residential side, the traffic impacts versus the commercial development are far, far less. Commercial developments really attract a lot of traffic, particularly at peak hours of the day. So from a traffic standpoint, any residential proposal that's allowed under this zoning designation would be much less impactful. So we're not at all in the business of bait and switching. Like I said, we've been working on this for upwards of 20 years. The market has not panned out, and we think it's time to move forward with something that would be an enhancement to the community versus just letting this land lie fallow. If Auburn decides at some point in the future that they want to annex, we're happy to work with them, either now or in the future. This is not to exclude Auburn, but it is time, we think, to move forward. So thank you for your time tonight.
Thank you. The next speaker is Nancy Rogers.
Great. Thank you and good evening. I'm Nancy Rogers. I'm a land use attorney working with Oak Point, and my office address is in Seattle, Washington. We've heard a lot tonight, and in earlier sessions, we've heard a lot of community concerns, especially about the types of uses and the location of those uses on this 13.2 acre parcel at the south end of the bridges. I also want to specifically note and appreciate that we heard tonight public support for adding housing uses to this property for the bridges. And I, in particular, want to say thank you to the council for providing Oak Point additional time to work through the concerns we've heard discussed tonight, as well as at your prior session and the concerns many of you council members noted in your original discussion to postpone this item. We look forward to coming back to the council very soon with this matter and these issues resolved. And as Brian Ross stated earlier, the goal, again, that I don't want you to lose sight of, the goal of this comprehensive plan amendment is to add housing as a potential use to this piece of property so that housing on that land can be developed within the city of Kent. The goal is not to preclude retail or other commercial development. The goal is not to preclude annexation to Auburn. Annexation to Auburn could happen in the future, but it is not ready to occur today. And we're asking that the city of Kent move forward with this comprehensive plan amendment as step one in the development of these 13.2 acres. The final point I wanted to make is that We've also heard a lot, and I think Brian touched on this as well, about project level impacts. And by that, I mean what's going to happen with wetlands, the amount of traffic, that kind of thing. Project level impacts are not reviewed at the time of comprehensive plan land use designations. They are reviewed later at the point in time in which you have a development application. And by you, I mean the City of Kent broadly. City of Kent staff has a development application in front of it. That's the correct time to be reviewing those items in detail. That said, we're obviously interested in fully understanding all of these issues before we proceed with the comprehensive plan amendment. And again, are glad to be able to take this additional time to work with the city and the community to resolve these concerns and then come back to the council with the clear direction for this comprehensive plan amendment. With that, I want to thank you again for your time and look forward to seeing you again, I hope very, very soon.
Thank you, Mayor. That's all the public speakers I have signed up.
All right. Thank you, Kim, and thank you to all those that provided comment this evening. I also will commit again to the council and the residents to continue to keep you updated on the conversations around annexation, de-annexation with the City of Auburn. Our public works directors have continued to meet, and the conversations are not canceled. They're still going. And we have provided Auburn with all of the detailed information that they requested. So our public works directors continue to meet to address the list of concerns that Auburn brought forward just at the end of last year. So committed to those meetings going forward. All right, with that, we have removed item number 9 from item number 8 is our consent agenda. This is a list of items that the council has addressed over the last several committee of the whole meetings, and they have been moved forward without controversy. Council President, is there a motion for the consent calendar?
I do, Madam Mayor, but if we can go back.
Yes, thank you. And we talked about the fact that I would forget this, and I apologize. And thank you for the reminder. My notes do say, please ask the council president for a motion to admit the written record the written documents that we've received into the record.
So, Madam Mayor, I move to admit as public comment the petition received by email from Edie Leedy on Monday, March 15th, 2021, as well as the attached petition and comments, along with all other comments received by 4 p.m. on March 16th, 2021, related to the Bridges Oak Point Ordinance, amending the comprehensive plan, which is set for other business.
Second. Too
All right,
slow, Joe.
There's a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carries and those documents are admitted into the record. Now we will move on to item number 8, which is the consent calendar. Council President, do you have a motion for that?
I do. I move to approve consent calendar items A through I.
Second.
A motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Item number 9 under other business was removed at the beginning of the meeting. We do not have any bids or executive session. So with that, we've come to the end of the agenda. Again, thank you everyone for participating in the meeting this evening. And with that, we are adjourned.